You are listening to a pleasure podcast. For more from our Sex Podcast Collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
And I'm bisexual too, so that's another thing. That's the one thing that my parents really have a hard time with. They really are really okay with me being a lesbian. They're really okay with me being straight, but they really have trouble when I switch it up.
Whoa.
Why?
It's uncomfortable to talk about sex, but sometimes it's important to get uncomfortable. Sex Talk with My Mom is the best mom-son podcast about sex.
It's the only one as well.
My mother is a cougar.
My son is a clown.
In a nutshell, my dad died, so my mother decided to create a YouTube channel all about sex, like all mothers do.
And then my son decides to use my material in his stand-up comedy routines.
And thus, Sex Talk with My Mom was born. Welcome to Sex Talk with My Mom. I'm Cam Potter.
And I'm Karen Lee Potter.
Wow. We are back in the studio together.
We're going old school.
I can't believe it. It's been so long, and we've been quarantined apart, and we decided we're breaking the seal.
He's entered the pod.
I'm back in. I'm in the studio. You're the only person I'm seeing. I said, why the fuck now wouldn't I see you?
Exactly. So here we are together.
And we came together for a very special reason.
You guys, you little sneaky freaks.
You sneaky freaks brought us together, and so did Margaret Cho.
Yes, Margaret Cho. Can you believe it? I've watched her stand up for years. She's amazing.
An unbelievable stand-up comic and actress. She came on the podcast. We're going to get to it, but before we do, I want to thank everyone who's left us a review. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, it really helps us out. And if you need help leaving that review, just go to ratethispodcast.com/mom. Mom, I wanted to read you a review.
I would love to hear it.
This says, Peaky Blinders.
Regarding?
Yes. Love y'all. Just FYI, Cillian Murphy is not in Peaky Blinders. The
What?
lead character is played by Jamie Bell, who is from the long-ago ballet movie Billy Elliot. He is also very yummy, but Cillian is the sexiest, and I wish he was in that show. But he's not. Love y'all, but Google before you talk about sexy Irishmen. Thanks, Winky Face, by Mickey B. Wee. Wow, 5 stars.
Excuse me, Mickey B. Wee.
You just got fucking got by Mickey B. Wee.
I
Moot.
did not.
Yeah, you got.
Mickey B has got because I IMDb the shit out of that. And I decided to, I'm not losing my fucking mind, okay? I just want you to know that, first of all, 8.8 from IMDb, not bad, right?
Okay, so people like it.
So what does this say right here in terms of the cast? Can you read that, please?
My eyes are going. Cillian Murphy.
Please.
Thomas Shelby?
Thomas Shelby. Yes. On what show is this over here?
Peaky Blinders.
That's right. So, if you're going to Google something, you better, if you're going to correct me and require me to Google something and break my heart and make me think that I'm a complete moron, better do your homework first. Who is this?
Mickey B. Wee.
Mickey B. Wee. Although Mickey B. Wee looks like
she did give us 5 stars.
She gave us 5 stars.
So we still love you.
We still love you.
And I also love that you're choosing to take the opportunity when you're reviewing our show to correct my mother. I think that's great.
I don't appreciate it if it's not going to be accurate.
Okay. All right. I also wanted to thank all of our patrons for making this show possible. You will hear bonus content there on our Patreon page. It is the sweetest way to help us out.
It is. Little sneaky freak family.
And it helps keep our lights on. So thank you to all our patrons. And now, on to this incredible guest.
Yes. I'm very excited to tell you about Margaret. And she let her hair down.
She really did. So a little background. Margaret Cho is one of the most iconic stand-up comics, mainly because she paved the way in terms of talking about being a Korean American, LGBT. She was completely outspoken about sexuality.
And how about the fact that she's a woman and has been doing it since I don't know how long?
A legend.
She is.
She invited us onto her podcast.
Yeah.
And then we were, of course, why wouldn't you want a mother and son talking about sex on your podcast? So she invited us on, and then we were like, well, we have to use this for our podcast.
Right.
So what you're going to hear is actually a crossover episode.
Right.
Which might account for the different music you'll hear at the end of our show. But we wanted to give credit where credit is due to the producers of the Margaret Cho show.
But you know what I liked about it, from my standpoint, is that we're roughly in the same generation. So it was very fun talking to her about hormones and just stuff. Hysterectomies.
My internet cut out at one point and I came back and you guys were talking about hysterectomies.
Yeah. And then we also can relate and being frightened from nuclear war, things like that. We talked about everything.
I loved learning about how she became outspoken about sex because of her family.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That was pretty cool. I mean, well, you'll find out. We're not going to give you too much information. I'm just going to give you a few little teasers. Polyamory, BDSM, and bisexuality. They're all topics that are going to be explored very deeply in the upcoming episode.
Well, I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys for tuning in. We love you to the moon.
And you know what? Just because I want to, I'm going to sing you out.
Do it, Moon.
And let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and having the accurate information about Peaky Blindies.
Oh, we'll talk to you soon.
That was pretty good.
It was good.
Yeah.
You gotta enjoy.
How's your quarantine?
Lonely.
Cam is lonely. I think I'm making the best of the situation. You know, it's not forever. We're dealing. How about you?
It's something that I have like, I'm a child of the 80s. So it's like when in the 1980s, we always thought that there was going to be a nuclear war.
I'm the same. I'm right there with you, but I think I got 10 years on you.
Well, I'm 51.
I'm 61.
Okay.
I got 10 years on you.
So yeah, exactly. So then do you remember when like they thought that we're going to have a nuclear war and that we were going to have to live underground in bunkers?
Yes. It terrified me. I had nightmares about it.
Yeah. And then we'd have to like have like emergency water reserves and eat like kind of medical, like what med rations or whatever, like military
space foods.
Yeah, military rations, and kind of like doomsday prepper stuff. And so I sort of thought, well, we'll live in bunkers, and we'd have to do like these drills at school around it too. There's like movies about it, and I thought, oh, well, we're going to live this way. And then after earthquakes, we'd have these sort of like a few days of living that way too, because I grew up in San Francisco. So there was some of that. So I think I have a little bit of PTSD from that makes me think about quarantine in that way.
I never thought about that because it was called the movie called The Day After.
Right. Exactly.
Freaked me out.
The Day After.
Yeah.
It's exactly like The Day After.
Every day.
What was The Day After?
A movie that scared the hell out of me for years.
Did they have like the disaster? It was a nuclear war movie. It was on TV.
Yeah.
And then they had like these discussion groups where you would talk about it at school after.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you would talk about, it was like a thing where you would talk about it with your classmates and about the trauma that you experienced watching it and about your feelings about what's going to happen. And like, to sort of talk about like trauma and remembered trauma and like what you would do. And there was a British version. I actually just watched it on recently when the quarantine first happened. I watched it online.
Why? Why did you watch that?
Well, I wanted to see like the British version was called Threads. And the British version actually was much more hardcore because the British version goes far into, because the Americans always kind of pull the punches when it goes into sort of like trauma. The British version actually goes into the nuclear disaster, and then they do all of this stuff where there's people die in the house, and they had to bury the mom in the backyard, and it turns into like almost like a zombie apocalypse. Like it's like a terrible situation. It's like actually like with like horror movie makeup and stuff. Like horrible. Like of course the American version doesn't do that, but. It's like,
thank God I only saw the American, and I will not be seeing the British version because I still get all freaked out about it.
Very traumatic.
Yeah, we're trying to like maintain like a Zen thing going on.
Well, it's like you have to be positive about it because it didn't happen. We didn't have. I think because of that, because of all the trauma, people were very conscious about nuclear holocaust, and so we didn't have a nuclear war. Good
point.
Yeah.
So now this is a wake-up call for us paying attention to what's going on in the world.
Right. That we don't have any more people being murdered by police. We don't have any more violence against Black people. That we don't have any more murder and the chaos like that.
Yep. And when hopefully people will pay attention to the environment, pay attention to medical supplies being depleted, with the rainforest being depleted. We can go on and on.
Yeah. Hopefully there's more of a consciousness around. Well, I hope that also I've been out there protesting, and I also been very conscious of the fact that COVID is still out there, even though
it's not canceled.
Yeah, COVID's not canceled. So, I want people to be very aware to still wear their mask. And
oh, yeah. Yeah, I was out there protesting. It's quite challenging to keep both in check, like participating in the protests and actually, not getting COVID at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to do, but I think, I've been doing it with on a motorcycle. That helps.
Oh, damn.
Because you have
That's
a
awesome.
mask and a motorcycle. So the motorcycle helmet.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can go through. And then it's
hilarious.
It's easier because then you're sort of moving and it helps. But it's definitely like, I mean, I don't know. I get scared going to the grocery store still.
Me too. I was just there this morning. I started after a certain amount of time. Like I walk in, I have a little anxiety, shop around a little bit, and then I have a boyfriend who's like has to go through every aisle and every detail, and I started getting more and more anxious. Like I felt like I couldn't even breathe. It's a mental thing. There's nothing physically wrong. It's just that after you're wearing your mask and then you see people that are getting close to you, do.
Because people just get close. I don't know. I don't know why.
I live in a building in Hollywood where I think people just have like this sense of, well, I live in this safe building, so I can get 28 people in a hot tub. Wear masks.
Mm-hmm. Can you get in the hot tub? I don't know. Wait, can you get in a pool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Chlorine
will kill it.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm pretty good with diseases. I have never gotten an STD, which is a miracle considering.
Why?
I've had a lot of sex.
So have I. I never got an STD either.
I never got
actually, that's probably not 100% true. Who knows?
I don't think I have ever. I've never gotten an STD, and I've really done a lot. I mean, never. I never. At least as far as I know, not even crabs.
Wow. Well, you are definitely lucky. But we, again, I think the older generation, we weren't as like, I don't know. There seems to be a lot more out there now.
When I first started having sex was in the early 90s, and it was such a I was working at a store called Stormy Leather, and it was the very beginning of AIDS education. So we were doing a lot of like safer sex technique classes. So it was a very, very big thing then to do a lot of like blowjobs with the condom. And you do these like classes or workshops where you would have like the flavored condoms with like the mint latex, and then you would do it like on like a banana, and you would have like all the different kind of fruit, and you would bring it to like the workshop and then show everybody. And so there was like a big push. And then we'd actually even do like cunnilingus with a dental dam. We don't do that anymore.
I've never used a dental dam. Have you, Cam?
No, I have not. By the way, my internet cut out for a while there, and we went from like nuclear. The last I heard was nuclear bombs, and now we're talking about dental dams. So I don't know if I missed something in between.
You missed you missed a lot about. Well, I used to work in a sex store in San Francisco in the early 90s.
Oh, cool.
It was a weird time, and sexuality was just it was so different. And so people were getting really into BDSM because it was a way to be intense and sexual, but you weren't fluid bonding.
Oh.
That's really interesting.
So BDSM was very, it was like this thing of like, we can get very hardcore, but we don't have to be at risk.
Gotcha.
And so that was one of the big entry points into that. Oh, I'm going to get my dog to stop barking. Hang on a second.
I love your tats, by the way. I've been noticing. I watched one of your stand-ups where you like took down your pants.
Oh yeah,
and you had your butt cheeks talking to each other, and I'm thinking, this woman is fearless. I was literally so excited to meet you because I don't know anyone who's as as fearless as you. That was
that's
pretty
it.
wild. And it seems like you've added to the tattoo collection.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot. And I think I might be done though because I don't produce any more endorphins when I get the tattoos.
Oh, that
So
is
it
wild.
just straight up hurts now.
Oh,
And it's like, ugh. Like my body's sort
I've
of
never
shut off.
had a tattoo, and I've always wanted to, but then I think I'm so ADD that I've changed my mind like the day after I get it, and then I'm stuck with it.
That happens too. Then you start thinking, oh, I should get, and I'm like, oh, I want something else.
You have tattoos that you'd like, I'd rather have something else right there?
I think so. I do want to all change everything, because also I find other artists that I think, oh, that's so amazing. And also the innovations in the techniques and the art changes and the trends change. And there's so many great artists too. It's hard to decide of who would be great to do. But also I love everybody that I get from. So I don't know. And then a lot of the tattoos that I have are I love anyway. So it's hard. I'm very much like I can't decide who I want to get them from.
And then I'm thinking, what if it sags? What if like my tattoo of a rose becomes like a snake or something?
Yeah, that's
Who
all right.
knows
That
what could
part's
happen?
fine. I don't mind that part.
How did you get so fearless?
I think it's well, it's like my family are kind of they'll sort of do anything because they had a gay bookstore in the 70s, and they're super like conservative Koreans. So
That makes no sense at all.
Yeah,
That's
it doesn't make any
crazy.
sense. They'll sort of do anything, and they kind of raised me in this weird conservative way, but they also had a gay bookstore.
Wow. How did they end up with a gay bookstore?
I don't really know. I think because my dad really loves male attention. He's very handsome.
Oh.
So he loves to be adored, but he's not gay, but he loves to be adored by men.
Wow.
And so he loves to be painted by men, and he loves the male attention, and he loves men, like, but he's not a gay man, but he loves the attention of men.
What's his zodiac sign?
He's an Aquarius. So I don't know if that has anything to do with, he's Aquarius, but Capricorn cusp. So
I was thinking it has to do something. It's got more. There's more. We got to do your dad's chart one day.
yeah, maybe. I don't know very many Aquarian Capricorn guys either. I don't know.
Me
That's the one sign that I've never really known that many. I know a lot of Cancers.
Yeah.
That's the one sign I always meet is Cancers. Almost all of the people I ever met or talked to or hang out with are always Cancer. I'm a Sagittarius.
I was going to say, you're a Sag. I already looked you up.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you?
Libra.
Oh, okay.
That
I
makes
have a lot of
sense.
Libra in my chart. And I feel very Libra. I love Libras. Libras are very I have a really balanced eye.
I could see in your decor of your home.
Yes.
It's very romantic looking.
It's very my aesthetic is very Libra.
Beautiful.
But definitely I definitely don't know a lot of Aquarians but my dad is definitely, that's his life, his Aquarian life.
Did having that bookstore open up the conversation about sex immediately with you guys?
I don't know, but they were always all the people that worked there were always getting tattooed. So when I first got tattooed, the people that work there took me to Ed Hardy, who did my first tattoos.
No way.
So
Yeah,
that's
Ed
where
Hardy.
the tattooing began. And then Ed Hardy used to sell his tattoo books from my dad's bookstore. So in
That
the
is so
80s, when I first understood all of that tattooing world, that was where I learned about it, was from my dad's bookstore.
Did your mom have tattoos?
No. My parents are still very conservative and very Korean, but they would have photographs of the employees who were all full body tattoos people on our refrigerator at home. So we had these photos of people with full body tattoos in our house, and
which back in the day that was not popular. It's now it's very popular, but
Now
then it
it's
was
very
very
popular.
avant-garde.
But in the 70s and the 80s, that's really avant-garde. That's
Totally.
to me, that's crazy.
It is. Me too.
That's a very crazy thing to think about even now but that was like a very normal thing to have in our house, you know, in the 70s and the 80s. But yeah, that's
So-
the way that my family were. So that's why I think I kind of turned out the way that I did, because they were modeling for me, or my parents were sort of showing me, this is an example of an adult that we admire.
Oh,
Exactly.
cool.
Whereas the Jews were Jewish, and the Jews frowned upon getting tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes from like a few things, but you're not allowed to be buried in a Jewish cemetery if you've got tattoos, apparently.
Oh, is it
Yeah.
related
Yeah.
to like the Holocaust and getting the
It is
numbers
related
tattooed?
to, yeah, exactly. So for me, it was like, I didn't know anybody who had tattoos, and the person that did, I was like, oh, she has a tattoo. And now it's like, I live in LA, I'm the oddball for having no tattoos.
Yes. I mean, it is definitely like a culturally, for some, it's very much taboo. In other cultures, you can't be in the family if you don't have them. Like there's like these Samoan brothers I know who they had to go back to Samoa and get these full body tattoos that are like
Whoa.
so insane. And it's like, it's like so much time and so painful, and they have to do it because it's like huge part of their family ritual, you know. And it's like, it's so beautiful, but it seems like so much time and so much pain to go through. They have to, you know, and it's just amazing. So
Holy
it's like
moly.
different cultures are so different, you know, when they approach tattooing.
So did your parents, I mean, I watched a little of your stand-up, and your parents were at one of your, it might have been years ago, but what was their reaction when you went on stage and talked graphically about sex?
Well, they didn't like it, but they love that I am successful, and they love that I do what I do. Like now they love the career that I have, but they didn't have a problem with the content of, you know, I think they just had a trouble that I wasn't a doctor or like a lawyer or something like that. I think they're just happy that I am successful. But I don't think that they have a problem with like sex talk or anything like that. It's more just the avenue of it, that it's something that they can't really understand. They don't really understand what stand-up comedy is exactly. That's the hard part. Like
That's
it's
pretty interesting.
the definition of the business they don't get. But other than that, I think they love it.
Have you ever had a
good.
conversation where you're like explaining, hey, this is, I get up on stage and I tell jokes,
Yeah.
and then people pay
Yeah.
me for that?
Yeah, I think they get that part, but I think that they're like, they don't have the equivalent of it in Korea. So I guess they think, well, maybe it's like being a singer, or it's kind of like being an actor in between that. Somewhere in the middle of that. I guess an entertainer would be most like, like a clown of some kind. But they're very happy about it, and they really love being included. They love show business.
Oh,
So they
that's
love to be a
awesome.
part of it. So they always ask if they can be in shows and if they can be included. So they would love to be a part of it. And you guys do a podcast together.
Correct.
Well, that's it. We do sex talk with my mom, and Cam initially went to Stanford, and he was going to be a consultant, and he was going to make a lot of money and a lot of bonuses and no travel.
Here's some resentment there, Mother.
No, there was no resentment. I'm the one who encouraged you to do what's going to make you happy, right? So then what happened, Cam?
Well, I actually did go to clown school. And I got very into, you know, I'd been doing a lot of comedy throughout my life. And I was like, oh man, I do not want that corporate gig anymore. So I tried to start writing for TV and working for writers. And then ultimately I started doing stand-up and realized that my mother having a YouTube channel about sex was like a gold mine for material. And so I started using that in my stand-up. And then eventually I was like, well, we should just collaborate on this podcast together if we're going to
That's awesome.
talk
Yeah,
about this.
initially, what we didn't tell you is that, I don't know if you knew this, but my husband, Cam's father, was murdered back in 2006. And so I became single again, and I decided, well, I need to get some help. So I went on YouTube, and of course, there's nobody on YouTube besides like, you know, little 20-year-olds, and I was in my 40s, 20-year-olds telling you how to date or the pickup artist. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to make my own YouTube channel, and I'm going to, you know, talk about dating and help women, empower them to go out in the dating world again. and then just 18 to 35-year-old horny dudes or watching the channel.
Yeah.
And the whole cougar concept. So, yeah. So, I leaned into it and started interviewing porn stars and getting a lot more attention there. And then wrote a book called The Cougar's Guide to Getting Your Ass Back Out There.
Uh-huh.
And that was for women. And Cam, you took my book and started using it in stand-up comedy.
I love it.
Yeah.
love
That's
it.
our little origin story. Was sexuality ever like a thing that you couldn't talk about with your parents, or did you have anything to even rebel against?
No, I mean, the rebellion really has to do more with, I think, ideas of what Asian women can be like, and for me, it's really more about society's vision of what Asians are about. For me, it's more like in entertainment, society is really kind of coming to terms with Asians being visible, and existing within entertainment. So that's the rebellion for me, is just becoming visible in entertainment as we're sort of emerging. But in terms of sex, it's more like just becoming and existing. Usually, I think the image of Asian women in sex is really something of like submission and quiet, and a very kind of like non-existent or passive sort of subject.
Why is that?
I'm not sure. I think it's sort of that sort of Madame Butterfly kind of like sexual, like sort of submissive flower fantasy. But I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I don't really feel like I'm that. If anything, I'm much more of a sort of playful or either or. Like, I can be very dominant. I can be submissive for sure, but I also like to flip things around.
You're a switch.
I'm a switch. I can also be butch, but I also really like to play and be more, I think, adaptable, and I think it's definitely fun. It's fun to submit, but it's also fun to dominate too. It's also fun to be adaptable.
Do you find that you're still like exploring a bunch of new ways of playing with other people? And
Yeah, definitely. And I'm bisexual too, so that's another thing. That's the one thing that my parents really have a hard time with. They really are really okay with me being a lesbian. They're really okay with me being straight, but they really have trouble when I switch it up.
Whoa.
Why?
Because
but we've heard this before from other gay guys.
Well, they're fine with when you're gay, it's like, oh, okay. And when I'm straight, it's like, oh, okay. But then when it's by bi, they're like, oh, no. They get really confused because it's like, no, only one. So
you're deviant otherwise.
Yeah, because it's like you have to decide.
Wow.
And because you're being untruthful if you're not one or the other. So I think that's where it's almost like you're lying if you're not one or the other.
I think that we've heard this before from people that were bi, and like we interviewed a guy who was living with another man, and he considered himself bi, but the other man was 100% gay, like gold star, gay, and he said he's not accepted like in either world because of that.
Yeah, there's a kind of thing of like bisexuality is a very mysterious identity because people sort of don't believe you, and either the world of gayness doesn't accept it, and also the straightness doesn't accept it. It's weird. So my parents are kind of part of that too. But that's the only area that they don't really get. Everything else, they're kind of very roundly accepting. I think as you get older, actually, older people often are very accepting.
Do you agree with that, Mom?
Well, I don't know, because my parents, my dad was 90 when he just passed away, and my mother's in her mid-80s, and she was never able to acknowledge that her brother was gay. It was obvious he was gay. He's living with two guys all his life. He never went on a date with a female, and she's just not, he's not gay. I'm like, yeah, he is. No, he's not. And then on the other side, we had another cousin who was wearing tights all the time and all the theater, and very, very, but again, it was so frowned upon. He would always say, "Oh no, I'm not gay. I just have I have a lot of guy friends." Now he's out in full gay enjoyment, but before, I mean, our age group really looked down upon gay people.
But
It's like so different from now.
I do think you're a little more. Well, I think you're an anomaly, Mom.
Well, I'm the oldest living millennial. Just
Yeah,
You're
love
pretty
it.
liberal in your stance on all this.
But I think it's our podcast because we interviewed so many people with polyamory and multiamory and I mean every transgender, everything. We've interviewed so many different people that how could you not be completely open to any kind of sexuality when it's all, to me it's like this is very interesting.
Do you hear this music, Mother?
I'm calm already.
Calm, my friends, is the app that you need to relax, to calm down, to de-stress, to sleep, to live a healthy life.
I got to tell you something. It has made a profound difference in my life that Deez and I, for at least 10 minutes every day, open up the Calm app, and it changes us from this crazed lunatics that we are into these calm, meditative human beings.
Calm has a few different specialties. One, they have sleep stories that help you go to sleep at night. You can listen to Harry Styles tell you the most amazing stories to help lull you to sleep. It also has a meditation tab, which gives you guided meditations about anxiety, stress, work, self-care, inner peace, whatever you're trying to meditate for.
Focus.
It will help you do that. Focus for sure.
Have you
And then
noticed that I've become more focused since I've been using Calm?
I can't say I have, but maybe you need it a little more.
For listeners of the show, Calm is offering a special limited time promotion of 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/sextalk.
That's 40% off of unlimited access to Calm's entire library, and new content is added every week.
Get started today at calm.com/sextalk.
Don't use calm.com/mom. It supports another podcaster. Calm.com/sextalk. Mom, are you a football fan or are you a football fan?
I'm a football fan.
Which team has been led by Coach Bill Belichick? Baltimore Ravens, New England Patriots, Los Angeles Lakers, or the New York Mets?
New England Patriots.
Oh, she got it right.
I'm so happy.
She
I'm
is the...
so proud of myself. I love this freaking game.
This is Trivia Star. If you don't know it, go download it now. It is the most fun you're going to have on your phone. It's a free mobile quiz game that's entertaining and challenging.
And they have different categories like sports. By the way, would you have known Bill Belichick?
No, I wouldn't. I've heard his name, but I don't know, honestly,
Okay.
what team.
But you would definitely get the
Animals category.
Animals
I
category. And
I love that
maybe
we both looked at animals and we're like, yeah, that's the one I'm going to win.
animals. You would not get celebrities. You would not get TV. You would not get sports or
How about
music.
famous Buddhists?
Famous Buddhists. That's who you would have gotten if there's a category for that.
There are over 60 categories to choose from. I'm sure one of them is famous Buddhist monks.
Right now, Trivia Star is offering you 2,500 coins and 500 gems when you download and play. Just go to the Apple or Google store and search for Trivia Star.
Search Trivia Star and enjoy 2,500 coins and 500 gems.
And download Trivia Star today for free. What do you got to lose? It's so fun.
I think polyamory is really modern too. I think more and more people are definitely poly.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I've been poly for a while, but I don't know if I am right now. I think I'm too I'm not sure. I think I probably would be poly, but I'm kind of now, I don't know. I'm so tired.
Do you have anybody significant in your life?
I do. I have one guy that I really like him a lot. And he's my quarantine Valentine's, my quarantine.
Oh,
so
that's so nice.
I really adore him. And then he's the only one that I see. But I was dating a few other people, a couple of actually women, before the lockdown. And but then that sort of went away when the lockdown happened. So then I don't think that and then now, so it's just been him. but which I think is good. And I don't know. And then I now don't really feel like I want to see anybody else. But
are you able to trust him that he's like not quarantining pretty significantly? And
yes.
Oh, that's good.
Very much.
See, quarantine is a good test. It's a good test for a relationship.
Yes, I think so. And I think it's nice that we're not quarantined together either. So it's
totally, there's something to be said for that.
I think you might be in the ideal situation, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're either living with someone, you're with them nonstop.
Which is me, or living with no one, which is Cam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You might have the best of all worlds.
I feel good about it. But I know that this time is hard for people who are cohabitating because of the togetherness is a lot.
It's a lot, especially when I've been living with my boyfriend since the start of this. Well, actually, we've been living together for 12 years already, but it's still like we have a very small 1-bedroom apartment. So when you're with each other 24/7, it was fine when he was going to work every day, but then all of a sudden he's there every morning and he's still there in the afternoon and he's still there at night. And I'm still there all morning, noon, and night. So together, it's a lot of togetherness.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think like is occupying your thoughts if you don't have to worry about romance or anything?
I guess it's really about trying to figure out what my creative life is when I'm not doing comedy. So that's because it's like most of my time is really going out and doing comedy or traveling to a place to do comedy or figuring out what my shows are going to be. But now that's all gone. So it's very weird. Like so much of my life is structured around doing shows. And now pretty much the year is like not that. So I realize so much of my time is all of that. So a big part of my life is gone. So it's a real like loss. And so there's some grief around that, some depression, some mourning around that. So I'm trying to figure that out. It's weird. It's very sad. It's hard to cope with, kind of.
Yeah, totally.
It is when you're so if your personality is very type A and you're always having to do things, such as myself. I finished a book and then I decided, well, I'll take 50 photo albums and to condense them. So that's a huge project.
Yeah.
It's like I never have time for boredom then. I just always have a project on my agenda.
Yeah. I just I don't think that I mean I always I always had time to like look at things, and I never took photos. I always was just like doing comedy, so I never took photos, and so I was like making jokes about it, so I never took any photos. So it was all like jokes instead of taking photos. So I never did anything like that. I just told all the jokes that I never took any photos. So I should have taken photos.
People probably took photos of you.
Maybe. I guess so. That's probably good.
I've always been the historian kind of person, but also, but not really, because I'm living my life through the lens instead of like being present and doing that, making the jokes and writing down the jokes. I should have been writing down the jokes. You should have been taking more pictures. We would have been perfect.
I know. It's funny though, because it's like, I think like now that I look back, I'm like, I realize, oh, those are the things that I should have missed, that I missed, that I should have remembered, like taking the photos, because back then, we didn't have social media. So we didn't have, like, if you didn't take a photo with like that camera, you didn't have it. Now, of course, it's so lucky that kids have that. So they have their memories right there, which I think is one of the great things is, you have your memory or you have your life right in front of you.
Except that you give your camera to someone or you give your phone, take a picture. They take like 20 every time, So you never go through any of them because you got 40,000 that are on my phone now because I got the the big large RAM gigabyte whatever.
Yeah,
and so you don't see any pictures because there's too many.
Right, that's true. It's funny.
Have you been finding that like you have a tendency, like a way of coping with that grief?
I think that I've just been lately watching a lot of K-dramas. So it's like Korean TV shows help. Yeah. That's very good because it's like there's a thing about Korean TV shows that really tap into the Korean psyche, where there's like a crying part in every episode. So there's like at least a good 3 or 4 minutes of crying in each episode of every Korean show.
No way.
So in like a 15-minute show, there's about 3 or 4 minutes of crying, no matter what the show is. If it's a comedy or drama or romance or whatever, or horror, there's always crying.
Why?
So it's awesome because Koreans really need to like cry because they're so shut down as a people that really we can't cry in any other capacity other than when we're watching TV. So there's always that's the only emotional outlet we have.
That is unbelievable. I should watch this. I don't
really
cry
good.
enough.
Yeah.
You cry all the time. What are you talking about?
I don't cry all the time.
You're a very emotional person.
No, that's good. It's
I
really
did-
I think
good.
it's good, but you don't need to cry more.
I think the last time I cried was watching Duncan Trussell's Midnight Gospel. That was.
I heard that's really good. I heard that people cry to that for that. They really cry when they watch that.
Oh my
The
god!
last
him too.
episode,
Finale.
especially. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
finale is a killer. It's a killer.
That's beautiful.
So I have a switch here. I saw on your stand-up that you get the aisle and the airplanes.
Oh yes.
Me too. And
Oh.
for the same reason, because you're right. You cannot sit at the window if you have to go to the bathroom like 5 times a flight.
I always have to get up.
Me too.
I always have to get up because I'm always afraid that I'm going to have a urinary tract infection.
Exactly. You have to keep on high alert at all times.
So I'm always having to just like push out whatever, because it's like I'm always kind of like worried. Everything down there has to always be pushing out. I'm very conscious of everything. Like I'm always doing like Kegels. I'm always doing some kind of like.
Where does that come from? I agree.
I think it's like the super. I think it like when you're because my mom had a hysterectomy in the 70s, and like so when you grow up with that kind of mentality of like always do your Kegels, always make sure you evacuate your urethra entirely.
Really?
Your
'Cause
bladder entirely.
I just had a whole hysterectomy and I feel better than I've ever.
Oh, really?
And I don't have to go to the bathroom as much.
Oh,
There's not so much pressure down there.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Do you
So don't
do
be
like
fearful.
okay? Do you do hormone therapy then?
Yes.
Oh, how does that? How did that make you feel better? Does it feel good?
Love. I'm a big promoter, big proponent.
That's
Yeah, it feels great. You don't do it?
I do a little bit of the bioidenticals,
Yeah,
and that helps a lot.
totally.
That helps so much, actually.
And in every aspect, especially bones.
Yeah, and I like and also the the testosterone helps the orgasms a lot.
I didn't do the testosterone, but I think marijuana does the trick for me.
Oh yeah, I'm sober, but the testosterone really helps like for orgasms in like multiples.
Really?
Yeah, I found like
I
just
have
a little bit.
I may give it a shot, but I thought I'd get really mean on it.
Oh yeah, I don't do enough. It's like I do tiny amounts. Like it's not enough to actually have like sort of any sort of mood shift.
I'm going to give it another shot now that I had the hysterectomy.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's also have you done the Mona Lisa?
What is the Mona Lisa?
The Mona Lisa, the laser. It's like a laser that goes. It's sort of and the laser,
vaginal.
Yeah, it's
You talked about that. You did that, right?
No, I did the collagen bead, which I didn't like.
Oh,
The
okay.
collagen thing is in it's G-Shot, which I didn't
Right.
like. It's where they put, and I don't think they do that anymore, and it's very expensive, but they put it under your G-spot and it inflates the spongy tissue under there to make it so that you can orgasm with pressure under there, but it doesn't work because it's like that everybody's going to have a different reaction. I don't think you can actually enlarge a G-spot that way.
Yeah,
And I don't
because
think
everybody has a
everybody's-
different G-spot.
yeah, and I don't think it's going to be the same thing if you put pressure on it. If it's like we orgasm in different ways. It doesn't have the same effect no matter what.
Exactly.
The Mona Lisa laser is a laser therapy that I think it's supposed to a laser therapy that goes into the vaginal wall, and it's supposed to tighten the vaginal wall and make it wet again.
Okay, I have not had that yet.
Me neither.
I don't. I I don't know if I have that problem. I think it's fine. I don't really need anything in that department. There's some kind of I think there's a supplement that you can get wetter, that it makes you wetter. I don't know what that is.
Estrogen.
I think that the bioidentical helps me with that.
Right.
In general.
You're good to go.
It's it's fun to explore the idea of like, oh, what can I do? What can I do to help all this stuff along?
I agree.
Yeah.
Preaching to the choir here.
But it's like I have to sit on the aisle because I always have to get up and pee all the time.
And I love in your stand up how you like tell all the gay guys, you just like call them all out on it, like they should try, going down on a woman, and you like make the funniest faces.
Well, it's fun. I mean, they should just try. They shouldn't be so afraid.
It took me a while to appreciate it.
To go down on women.
Yeah.
It's an art form. It's a lost art.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily came very naturally to me. It definitely took a few tries to understand what the hell is going on.
Well, there's so many different. I mean, like I always say that area is like a little snowflake. That's no one's like the same. So how does a guy know like what to do, or a girl? How does anybody know what to do when going? It's one thing when you have a blowjob. That's kind of like there's not that much variety there, but with finding that clit. Knowing what's going and knowing how to work it, that's another story.
I know, and everybody's so different, but the people that really love it, and sometimes it's just the perfect thing.
How did you decide to start experimenting with different genders? And
well, I always was attracted to girls, and like I always thought I was a lesbian when I was even like younger. Like growing up, I just identified as a lesbian. Even as a kid, I thought I was just like loved girls. Like I loved my friends. I wanted to be with girls. I always identified as like I was gay. Like I knew that I was gay, like as a kid and as a teenager. So I sort of came out very young as a lesbian. And then in my early 20s, I was like, oh no, I like guys. Like I was attracted to men in my 20s. Then I was real confused. And I'm like, wait, this is not right.
I'm not supposed to like guys. What the fuck?
And I was like, oh no, I'm straight. And then I was like,
no.
I'm gay. And then it was like back and forth. And then I was like, oh, you don't have to decide.
Yeah.
So now it's just kind of whatever.
Yeah, that's where I think all future generations seem to be going.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I tried making out with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I really tried.
Yeah.
And I just could not get into it. Now, maybe it was just one particular girl, or maybe I just wasn't in the mood, or maybe it's society has conditioned me so much not to do it or not to like it, that maybe I'm not able to open up to that aspect. But I don't know. There's something visceral with me with men. So I don't know.
You just like guys.
Whatever floats your boat.
What are you going to do? I have a similar reaction when I think of myself as straight, which I do identify as straight. But then I think of like all the things that come with being straight, like especially for guys, like this idea that you should just be wanting to fuck all the time, and like for me, it's always been much more of an emotional experience.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'll get turned on if someone says something nice to me or something, like if I like the person.
That's nice.
But that's like a very not straight guy thing to experience. And it was always very confusing to me.
Yeah.
And so,
but that's nice.
Yeah, it is. I guess it is nice. It makes dating a bit harder than it would be for my friends, I think, who identify more as like, very straight traditional dudes.
Yeah.
Well, they're just not picky. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think they don't feel. I think a lot of them just will, if they have the opportunity, they don't have like a lot of empathy for the people that they're having sex with, I think.
Yeah.
And they're led by their penises.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that it doesn't have to be that way. I think, straight guys can be evolved too. They can change and they can grow. I have all these like old that magazine We magazine. It was used
Oh,
to
yeah, yeah.
used to be run by Hugh Hefner. Is the Playboy owned it. It was like the European label of Playboy. It was Playboy and then We and then Penthouse and Hustler. Back in the day, in the 70s and the 80s. And the masculinity was so different because it was so separate from femininity. It was so much about, it was like girls and tennis and motorcycles and cigarettes and judo. And it was so like separating your emotions from your friends and from your like sports and like from your football, and like there was so little like emotional engagement and so little like about like anything like understanding why your feelings were your feelings and understanding her feelings and like separating your like emotional life from her emotional life, and having these real strict boundaries about masculinity.
Macho.
Yeah, very macho, and very much there's these like very strict rules about masculinity, and keeping within those borders, and so much of that has gone away. So a lot of these magazines are very much like dinosaurs of this idea of like maleness and performative maleness that they're all gone now. So it's a good thing to remember, like these things don't have to be what we are.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel completely gone for me. Like I still feel like a weirdo a bit. Especially when I talk to older generations. Even when I talk to Mom, your boyfriend, Ed, like I feel like we're in very different camps in this way.
He's very broy. Yeah, he's broy. And your dad was from Argentina. He was macho.
Yeah, like
it
like
the big the way they make fun of each other is just you're gay. That used to be the way people made fun of each other.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a good thing to change. Change is good,
and it's a good thing to grow, and it's a good thing to explore that. And I mean, I think like. To explore the feminine feelings and the different feelings, and to cry. It's very good.
I have found that I think because of the way I am, like leaning more towards, like at least embracing my femininity at the least. I am attracted to women who are that embrace a masculinity.
Yeah,
which is it's pretty fascinating to even see that tendency of mine to want like the compliment,
Yeah. I love a masculine woman too. Like I love a really like a tomboyish girl. Like I love like a Kristen Stewart moment, like a real like like I love a Ruby Rose, like Kristen Stewart, like a not that that's even remotely masculine, but kind of butch tomboy. Like I think it's so darling and kind of it's so cutely, like it's so cute and still so feminine as fuck, but so hot and butch too.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah, it's a different type of femininity, I guess.
Yeah, it's very. It is, but it is kind of like blunt femininity. It's blunted in a masculine way. It's very European somehow. It's really elegant. I love it.
So when you tour, do you get a sense for how sex and relationships are treated around the world?
I think it's a lot more free and like in Europe for sure, and then a lot more buttoned up in Asia. Like in Asia, it's like way more like conservative. Well, like in like Korea, it's like people aren't even out. Like in like Korea, like in gay pride in Korea, people and this is before COVID, people would wear masks and nobody would take photos because you couldn't be out. Like nobody could be like openly out and openly marching for gay rights or openly seen there, and it's like really taboo, and it's very strange. Like you could be for gay rights and talk about gay rights, but you couldn't be photographed at a gay rights rally or anything like that. So it's like a very weird thing. it's like very secretive, and I have a bunch of gay friends there, but they can't be out to their families, and they can't be out at work, and so it's a duality that I think is very, very strange. But in Europe, it's very there's like a lot of like people who are very out both at home and at work, and people have like gay and straight alliances in like their like schools and in like work, and in their work like environments are very gay, and it's like a very like different kind of thing. So I think it's more gay there than America even. So it's cool. It's like definitely
For sure, Paris.
much more open. Yeah.
In Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Germany's kind of kinky, I hear.
Very kinky. And Köln is like where they have all the leather bears.
Oh.
The capital of bears and leather is Köln.
Oh, damn.
So anytime you want to go there, Cam, you can
noted.
find one of your own.
Anytime I need a bear.
All the leather bears. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us, inviting us
Yeah.
tonight.
Thank you. I enjoyed it so much.
And that was our little chat with Margaret Cho.
How fun.
Very fun. I wanted to thank the whole Erios team for setting up this wonderful cross episode. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, check out the Margaret Cho. That's her podcast. And a big thank you to Melissa Stetson for editing this podcast
That
for
was
us.
very nice.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. Love you guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye.